Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Patunka and I'm a cloud solution architect.
Hey everybody, this is Johnny Chits, and I'm a technical architect, and I work for BT Enterprise in the UK.
My name is Ahmed Laja, and I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft.
Hi, I'm Anna McNally. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft.
Hi, my name is George Washira. I work for the Intellectual Property Office as a senior engineer for the Ed User Services.
I'm Richard Griffiths, and I'm the Cloud Solutions Architect at Confused.com.
Hi, I'm Abul Kaya. I work as a technical payment specialist for Clearbank.
Hello everybody, and welcome to our August Welsh Azure User Group Meetup. Yeah, thanks for everybody for joining. As usual, we start off with that nice little video so you know who we all are behind the scenes at the Welsh Azure User Group. There's all our pretty faces on the screen. As always, do feel free to reach out to any of us, any ideas or thoughts or anything. Just come and say hello. So that's us behind the scenes. Now, okay, so on to tonight. We've got some fantastic talks coming up. So we're going to kick things off in a second with the guys and gals over in Servent. Going to come on and talk to us around unlocking AVD, and there's a customer success session with the University of Glasgow and the work the guys have done over there looking at that particular solution. So we're going to kick things off with that in a wee while, and we've got two lightning talks coming up tonight then as well. One from Sasha looking at Azure Sentinel, and one from Riccardo looking at Redis Cache. So in terms of timings, it's the usual sort of format that we've got. We're going to kick things off with the Servant talk fairly soon, just after a few announcements and some housekeeping bits and pieces. And then Sasha around about 7:30 if we stick to time, and then Riccardo around about 10 to 8. As always, we've got the quiz. So if you haven't got the Kahoot app installed on your mobile device, get it installed, or you can use the web browser if you've got a kahoot.com. Just a few housekeeping rules. As always, please do everybody be courteous to each other. There's no stupid or silly questions. If there's anything that comes to the forefront of your mind, that's the whole point of these user groups, is that you can attend, you can ask questions there, live in the chat. Do stay on mute unless you're invited off mute by the speaker to ask any questions. Obviously, just keeps the noise levels to a minimum, just so that we don't disrupt everybody from listening to what the speakers are saying. But like I say, the chat window's open, so please do feel free to ask any questions in there. Banter, jokes, take the mick out of me, whatever you like, really. It doesn't really matter. But that'd be cool. So yeah, feedback. Your feedback is always welcome. Like I say, if you do have any ideas or thoughts or feelings or want to talk at the user group, please do drop us some feedback. I'll put a QR code out at the end of the session tonight. If you can scan it, that would be awesome. And like I say, to join in the quiz a little bit later on, please don't forget to install that Kahoot app and join in. It is good fun. We got a couple of £25 Amazon vouchers up for grabs. So yeah, join in on that one. As always, we like to do these tweet and win competitions. We've got a bit of Welsh Azure User Group swag, some T-shirts and stickers and hoodies and things like that. So we're doing it again. If you're watching this, do join in. Take a picture of your favourite bit of tech swag. The comedy, the more comedic, the better. It's just about spreading the word. It's just about helping us spread the word of the Welsh Azure User Group. If you can do that, that would be absolutely awesome. Take a picture, get on Twitter, on LinkedIn, spread it round. And what we'll do, we'll pick a winner at random to win a T-shirt and some stickers. And I'll contact you over the next couple of days. But yeah, let's see if we can get some photos flowing. We're going to cross over to the guys from Servant at the moment. Des, I don't know if you want to say a few words now or wait until we kick off with your session in a second.
Yeah, I'll probably just wait till we kick off, John. Just an interesting thing.
No, absolutely. So yeah, as always, these user group sessions are put together and they're held together with the help and support of sponsors. And we are so fortunate as a user group to have three fantastic sponsors. The first one being Servant. They've kind of been with us from the inception days of the Azure User Group. They sponsor some of the other UK user groups like the Northern Azure and the Glasgow Azure user groups. Huge shout out to Des and the team at Servant there for the support. It's hugely appreciated. Our other sponsors being Admiral as well. Same goes to those guys behind the scenes to help put these events on. You know, we couldn't do it without the support of all our sponsors. And as we announced last month, we're so fortunate that we got NetApp have joined us and offered to help us and support us as a user group. So between that, I don't think you could ask for any better sponsors of a user group, to be honest. So hugely appreciated. Big shout out to those companies and thanks for the support. And like I say, you'll hear from Des and Servant in a second. Just a couple of quick kind of heads ups if you hadn't seen these already. The first, well, it's a large in-person conference going ahead in the on the 15th, 16th of October down in Southampton. It's the South Coast Summit. I believe they're free to sign up for a ticket. If you've not signed up and you're in and around the area, it's, you know, there's a huge mass right across the Microsoft product stack in terms of tech conferences and you know, talks and all sorts of things going on there. So take a look at that at southcoastsummit.com. Equally, there's a virtual event that's kicking off, and I believe this is over a 10-day period in September. So in about a month's time, September 13th to 23rd, the Azure Summit. If you go to azuresummit.live, sign up for that. Again, there's you know, there's a huge amount of talks and content that you can consume from there if you're interested. And finally, in September, we've got Dwayne Natwick over in the US is kicking off his annual event, which is the Azure Back to School. This is a whole month's worth, releasing, you know, one talk or one piece of content per day throughout September, really helping people that want to get into either talking or public facing, doing something publicly in tech, and obviously it's around Azure. So right the way through September, there's going to be, I believe it's like a teacher-student kind of format sessions, again, covering a whole plethora of different tech areas in Azure. So yeah, take a look at that if you can. Just thought I'd let you all know about those kind of things going on. Okay, so on that note, there's our little introductions done. I think at this point we will hand over to Des and the team from Servant and the University of Glasgow to kick off with our first session. So over to you guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the intro and kind words as always. So Andy is going to be driving the slides, but I'll introduce everybody just in the interest of time as well. So we've got a number of people that were actually involved in the project, and we've also got a customer along as well. So firstly, for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Des McGuire. I'm the founder and Azure Solutions Director of Servant. We're an expert Azure partner based in the UK, work all over the UK and Europe and beyond. And I've been in the Azure business for over 11 years. So I've been working with it since Project Red Dog. So I've really got the scars, seen the platform come from where it is, where it was, sorry, to where it is just now. And I think, you know, one thing I'll touch on as well, John, we're actually a sponsor at the South Coast Summit, so we will have a booth there. So if you are going, come and say hello, swing by. I maybe even buy you a beer if I feel in the mood, but come and say hello. We'll be there in person. Hopefully the event does go ahead as planned in person. So what we're going to speak about today, oh sorry, I'll introduce the team first of all. So we've got Nathan Bird, who's our Azure Cloud Architect and our AVD lead. So Nathan's been working with AVD for over, well, about 2 or 3 years now, so knows it intricately. We've also got Andy Norris, who's the project manager that delivered this project for the University of Glasgow. We've also got Rhys McDowell, who's our Azure Cloud Engineer, who actually did a lot of the hands-on deployment and engineering. And we've also got John Ayton, who's the Chief Solutions Architect in the End Users Compute team at university. And this is a customer success session that we're going to speak about here. Please ask questions as we go. What we'll try and do is bounce about and get you some honest feedback. First of all, from the customer. He'll hopefully give us complimentary feedback in the team at Servant and how we delivered this project with them. But I think the key thing is we partnered with the university to make the project a success, and what you'll hear tonight is that success. And there'll be some negatives, there'll be some plus points. I think the key thing is just to articulate back to you guys and give you some insight on how to plan an enterprise scale deployment. And this particular implementation scaled up to enabled for 78,000 users and beyond. So you'll hear some good insights. Hopefully you get some good hints and tips as well. Please ask questions as we go. So without further ado, let's just move on. For anybody that doesn't know Servent, we are one of the top Azure partners in the UK. We're based in Scotland. We're the top Azure partner in Scotland. We're in the top 3 in the UK in terms of customer references, how long we've been working with the platform, and really because we're laser focused on it, I think we're probably one of the only Azure only independent focused consultancies in the UK as well. And what we do is we help accelerate customers' adoption of Azure and as much of Azure as we can possibly get in consuming. And we do that under what we call Journey to a Modern Enterprise. So this is our banner, if you like, for all of our offerings in business. And on this slide here, you'll see a lot of our core offerings. There's more being added this year, later on in the year, but typically it starts off in the left-hand side there as a cloud assessment, and that would be an automated assessment either using Azure Migrate. Typically we use Mover and some of the other third-party tools to really assess that customer's environment. From then, we then look at our offering called Azure Foundation. Microsoft terminology for that is Enterprise Scale Landing Zone. We call it Azure Foundation. But what we basically do is look at the customer's environment, if it's not a greenfield deployment, if it's brownfield, and evolve that into enterprise scale. So bringing all the best practice that the cloud adoption framework aligns to, and then making sure that the correct governance and guardrails in place before we then start to a migration. We also then look at our offering called Azure Pathway. Azure Pathway is our complete data center exit offering, and that's where we have another left to right approach where we can come in and migrate in a very robust framework, the data center into Azure. And we are pretty unique in terms of an Azure partner, because what we also do is we'll move non-Microsoft workloads, so things like mid-range applications that either run on mainframe, AS400, IBM iSeries, Power, PC, Solaris, Spark architecture. So we really try and enter the data center for customers. Our data path offering there is moving customers to a modern data platform. So that's consuming things such as Data Factory, the Azure Data Services, Synapse for analytics, etc., etc. Then we break into 2 different areas. So modern apps, so cloud native app development, app modernization, and obviously Azure DevOps, both the product and the ecosystem wrapped around that as well. The other thing that we're famous for, and we've got a lot of referenceability around, is advanced workloads. So SAP on Azure, Oracle on Azure, and VDI, which is underpinned clearly by Azure Virtual Desktop, and you'll hear more about our capability in that space. Next slide, please. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the approach, our approach to AVD engagements with our customers. And all of our customers are large enterprise level customers, so we don't do a lot of work in the SMB type space. It's all large enterprise customers. And what we will also discuss is our value add and expertise in AVD. So we have been working with this longer than most partners, and we've created a lot of value add to AVD as a product and a service around some engineering expertise, and Nathan will touch on this in a bit more detail as well. What we won't be talking about here is teaching you about AVD. We're just assuming that everybody has a good appreciation of AVD. We won't be doing any online demos, and we certainly at this point won't be showcasing our engineering IP, because clearly that's our IP and we want to protect that. We'll also cover what the overall project approach was. So how did we plan it? What were the things we looked at? What were the things that were important to the university? And then talk about some of the successes. And there were, as I said earlier, there are some things that probably weren't so successful, because AVD, as we know, is a bit of a moving target as well in terms of a service and product. We'll also touch on how we delivered the project, and then we'll talk about what the next steps are for the university, and some really exciting stuff in terms of how they want to expand the uses of AVD across their environment. Nathan, I'll hand over to you at this point, and I'll keep quiet in the background.
Cool. Cheers, Des. Yeah, so let's start from the ground up here. So anything Azure Virtual Desktop, any Azure Virtual Desktop project, I've been using it since the preview days and the PowerShell only way of delivering or creating the resources and managing the resources days. So it's come on leaps and bounds. But there's four things I'll ask a customer. Any customer, doesn't matter who they are, whether they are they've got a massive on-premise Citrix farm or a VMware Horizon thing set up, or it all comes down to what problem are we trying to solve. Now, over the past 18 months, it's home working and COVID kicked in, so Microsoft thought, brilliant, Azure Virtual Desktop will solve this for people, and that's true. So the university in this case were no different. So I'm going to hand over to John to give some background into what actual problem they were trying to solve, and ultimately how do you measure that? Because you need a measure of success. So John, can you step in there and just give some background into the way you operate and what you were trying to do with the uni?
Sure, Nathan, no problem. So ours was a relatively unique problem in that we are a mixed house of lots of different technologies. So we've been using Hyper-V, VMware, Citrix at a kind of pretty extreme level as well in some cases. And the reason we really wanted to attack AVD or WVD, what it was at the time, was primarily due to the license costs of Citrix. So the kind of connection profiles for us were basically trying to get people connected from home into the university resources in a way that really meant they had the same desktop experience going across the board. We just couldn't do that with the Citrix setup. We had license costs were prohibitively expensive. It was just insane. The overall picture that we were looking at was how can we replicate the student environment. So most universities will have a common student computing environment, and we call ours CSE, funnily enough. That has a kind of broad ranging set of applications that are based across the campus. And not all of those applications are suitable for virtual environments, or not really keyed for virtual environments. And the problem we wanted to solve at that point was how do we get as many of these applications onto AVD as possible, and can we realise the same set of performance criteria that we expect on our desktops to come across that. And on the whole, we've done exactly that. The bit that Des missed out strategically, I think, was that we had engaged with another Azure partner previous to that. And I'm not quite sure how that came about to start with, but let's just say that the work wasn't exactly stellar. We had to rip that down and do our own version. And once we'd engaged with Servant, then we ripped our version down, and we were relatively happy with what we have right now. The whole approach from Servant was pretty excellent from start to finish. To be honest, we had as Des said earlier, the Azure space and AVD in particular is a massive moving target. So we didn't have any experience with DevOps. We didn't have any real experience in AVD or Azure at that time. We obviously kind of messed about with Azure and AAD and stuff like that. But the real value comes when I think you get that whole deployment piece from start to finish, where you can build your desktop, you can deploy it at any time of the day you like, and there's no real interference with any of the kind of operational side. You can still maintain everything as you redeploy changes to your environment. So on the whole, it's been a real success story for us, and it's ticked. Although the initial look at the costs for running AVD services looked quite expensive, when you compare that to the cost of running things on premise, and you include all the HR costs for members of staff, then we can start talking about license costs and stuff like that. Then we're looking at really a massive saving over the course of 2, 3, 4 years, particularly when you start involving reserved instances. So overall, I think we're delighted with where we are right now, and we're continually engaging with Servant on a kind of daily, weekly basis with a longer term view to getting more out of this technology in a way that really kind of benefits a university of our size, where we get a worldwide audience. And one of the key areas that we're looking to move into now is China, which is going to be a real challenge. But I'm glad we've got these guys on board.
Thanks, John. So hopefully that gives everybody a bit of background here. So on to the next pillar of what I always ask customers next is, and the reason why this one was such a big success is because I always ask the customer, do you have a test plan? Because I've worked with, close to 3 figures customers that have dabbled in Azure Virtual Desktop. Firstly, do you have a test plan? Do you know what you're testing, and do you know what you want the outcome of that to be? So John, thankfully, said, absolutely, we know what we want to test. We know these are the apps that are going on to Azure Virtual Desktop. These are the super users as such that are going to go and test those apps. They know what they're clicking. They know what we want feedback on. Because if you don't do that, users find problems that aren't actually problems, and they'll, your potential issues tracker just grows arms and legs, and then it turns out that it's not actually an issue. Or, like a lot of IT establishments, people don't like change. So if you introduce something new to somebody, they might be dead against it because they might be used to using something else. So they're going to go, right, I'm going to make sure this isn't working and feed that back. But thankfully, in this case, test plans were clear. And the main thing on that was, if there was actually an issue, there was responsibility and accountability at the customer's end to see that issue resolved. And we see it time and time again where people just point fingers really, and it turns out it's not actually a technical issue, or it's a training issue and things like that. So that's important. Don't go in blind. Don't go in and start deploying desktops, deploying applications, and then you're just going to lose all control. So next one, I asked John and his team, it was, are you willing to learn fast? Because as you mentioned earlier, there was no real exposure to anything cloud really, especially Azure. So you have to ask yourself, you're picking a virtualization technology or a VDI platform, you're going to run it on a platform that you don't understand at the time that we were brought in. It's key that you understand the basics, because ultimately, at the end of the day, Azure Virtual Desktop is an Azure virtual machine with an agent on it. It's nothing more complex than that. So the reason I asked that as well is because if you're not willing to learn fast, you're going to get disheartened quickly, and that's the same with anything Azure. The rate of change, the potential snags that you could hit, and you do hit hurdles. You've just got to keep plowing through and getting through that initial, I don't know how to explain it really, but that initial influx of knowledge that you're going to have to take on to make sure that you understand it. And the main reason is,
I was going to say pain there, I'm sorry.
Sorry, what was that?
I was going to say pain there, initial pain.
Yeah. We tried to ease that though, but yeah. So the ultimate question is, or why at the end of that, and that's because as soon as you've got users on it and they're using it, and something goes wrong, you need to know within 5 or 6 minutes of taking that call where that potential issue is, and you need to recover quickly from that. Because if a new service is down, you're introducing new users to it, or users to a new service, and it goes down or they can't access it, they're just going to lose faith in it. And with a university or people in higher education, you're dealing with intelligent users. They'll find a way of doing it themselves, and that's what you want to try and avoid. So that's a key pillar. And at this point, John was still listening, and he was still happy to keep with it. So that's a good start. The last pillar on there is, I've seen it millions of times. Are you licensed? And especially in the education space, it's totally different. Education licensing compared to your standard enterprise licensing, different ball game as far as I'm concerned. So I always ask people to double and triple check. Usually you've got an account manager or a license vendor, or you know where to go and buy your licenses from. So go and double check. A lot of the time I see customers mistake Office 365 licenses for Microsoft 365 licenses. Yeah, we do Azure, we do Office 365. That's not Azure. And 9 times out of 10, if you've got Office 365 licenses, you've not got the M365 license or the Windows 10 license that you need to run Azure Virtual Desktop. I think there's been a few ups and downs there, John, but we got there in the end with it. I don't know if there's a piece on that you want to fill in around your licensing issues, but if not, we'll just move on.
Yeah, we'll ignore that for now, mate. That's complicated landscape for us.
Good. Anyway, so on to how we approach Azure Virtual Desktop. I'm a technical guy. I love anything technical, especially with Azure. And I work for a company, and we're Azure experts collectively. I'm personally a fan of Azure Virtual Desktop, but I've been around the industry for long enough. I've had multiple hats. I started off as a service desk guy, as most people do, in through being a system center administrator. By system center, I mean old days SCCM and now MEMCM, so image management, client management, virtualization platforms, and then VDI infrastructure on top of them. So I use the Citrix admin. I've had exposure to VMware Horizon. And it's that type of experience that will, get you the most benefit out of Azure Virtual Desktop, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be something else that impacts it. So as I say, we've got a vast understanding. So I always try and term it as our virtual desktop ride, because it's always bumpy. And what I mean by that is we try not to stick to the speed limit. So John's can attest to this. We'll deploy something new will come out, and I'll go, that problem we had last week, we can fix that. Do you want to change it? Yes. Right, you need to do this. And I think John and his team quickly learned that they need to adapt, because you can change the admin experience basically and change free up your time. So yeah, if you move the slides on slightly, click the button I think 4 times. Yeah, just a bit of a joke slide really, but yeah, we don't take the path of least resistance, and there'll be bumps in the road. Sometimes John probably sat with us because we do a lot of knowledge transfer, and he's like, what the hell is this guy going on about? But rest assured, he's probably thinking, we're going to crash at some point. This is going to fall down, but it's not. We got airbags. And the main thing is understand those 4 statements. Time and time again, we see people start to look at Azure Virtual Desktop, or anything Azure really. And the first thing I'll say is, right, who's representing networks? Well, we've not told them yet. Nothing works without a network, nothing at all. So get the guys involved, because otherwise you just rub them up the wrong way, and then you spend the next month trying to cuddle them and say, it's okay, we're not going to run off and do something you don't want us to do. Nothing works without an identity. That's a key piece as well. So before the preview came out 2 weeks ago for Azure AD joined Azure Virtual Desktop hosts, you needed Active Directory of some flavor, whether that's DCs running on VMs, or you're absolutely mental and use Azure AD domain services. But that is an option. So that's key. So that was understood. We've done a foundation element for the university. So part of that was to build an identity spoke subscription, and in there is the domain controllers. So easy for AVD to inherit the use of those. I've mentioned it earlier. It's just Windows on a virtual machine at the end of the day. That's all it is. It's nothing different. Just because it runs in an Azure data center and you can't see the tin it runs on doesn't mean it's any different from management of the OS point of view. And if you've got a problem with Azure Virtual Desktop, it's not going to be the resources normally. You're relying on the SLAs of the VMs themselves. It's going to be a DNS replication issue. It's going to be a missing firewall on your hybrid connection. Or it's going to be a group policy that somebody has either misconfigured or re-enabled inheritance on an OU, and it's just started pulling everything that you don't want it to do. And the other thing is with Azure Virtual Desktop is if the apps that you're trying to surface within Azure Virtual Desktop require a back end or require comms to a back end that is not in Azure and is on-prem somewhere through multiple hops, Azure Virtual Desktop's not going to fix the user experience there. In fact, it's probably going to be worse. So, yeah, always be ready to perhaps migrate that app if it's critical to Azure, and don't rule it out. So the facts, touched on a few of these, but knowing the Azure platform, why would you stick a VDI environment on a platform you don't understand? COVID kicked in. You can have a go at it yourself, but I would highly encourage you to speak to somebody that understands Azure, because ultimately you're going to need to know where to go and look for the problem. And ultimately, you want to keep it simple. One of my statements is obscurity and complexity does not mean secure. Just means admin overhead. It just means it's harder to hand it off to somebody. It just means it's harder to train the next person that's going to come and take this on. Invest the time in the engineering effort. You know, I've mentioned other VDI platforms. You know, Azure Virtual Desktop, if you look at it, right, and everybody should know this on the call probably, that it's about 35 different resources in Azure brought together for a service, to provide a service. You know, to bring that together and do what you want it to do, you're going to have to invest the time to understand these components. And hopefully we already do, so we can ease that pain for the majority of customers and make the administrative effort smoother. And think outside the box sometimes. As I say, if you go and buy Citrix, they can charge you through the nose for it because it's been around for 30 years. It's a polished entire VDI package, basically. Azure Virtual Desktop can be if you want it to be, and you need to put the engineering effort to make that be. A lot of customers, university weren't no different. They rely heavily on the Azure portal because that's all they know, but you're soon going to get bored of clicking buttons. Think outside the box and perhaps learn some new skills, which is the next pillar, and start to learn about automation and eradicate legacy processes. Don't apply what you've been doing on premise to Azure, ultimately, or Azure Virtual Desktop. One of the key skills out with Azure Virtual Desktop and the way you provision host pools and give users access to it is profile management. And as you know, if you want to use shared profiles and pooled desktops and you know, manage profiles, you need FS logics, and people forget that FS logics is a component that needs managed itself. And again, the complexity that you can apply to FS logics is infinite, but understand that you need to maintain it, you need to upgrade it, and you need to, I would say, keep it simple and only do what you need it to do. Apps on Azure Virtual Desktop, it's not magic. If you don't understand your app architecture and a user comes to you and say, right, I can hit this GUI now, or this exe that's installed on my desktop, but it's slow as a week in jail, you know. Me as a consultant in the AVD space, I don't know how that app is architected. I don't know where that back end sits. The customer needs to know that in order to make that experience better. And we can look at it, we can look at the architecture, and we can provide guidance around how you could potentially put a quick win in to make that better. 9 times out of 10, if the back end's in a data center, which is chained to a data center, which is in a colo data center, you're ultimately going to have to migrate it to make that user experience a bit better. And the next one, Andy, is always be prepared to fail, and don't see failure as a negative. Learn from it. It's okay. Fix forward and never be disheartened. None of us live in a utopian world, so and that can be truer than the fact with Azure Virtual Desktop. Look at some things and you go, that should be so simple to do. Oh man, I'm gonna have to write a PowerShell script for that. But go ahead, write a PowerShell script. It's make your life easy from an admin perspective. So when we presented those facts to John, he still didn't run away.
That's because I couldn't run away, Nathan. My knees were sore.
So I'd like to let John speak for a couple of minutes about his experience and what he's learned and how we, helped him, reach his goal, which was to eradicate or remove the licensing issues that he's got with Citrix on premise, and also with the advent of COVID, deliver remote learning for the students at Glasgow Uni.
Sure, mate. So I'll start with the good news first, which is we've pretty much shut down our entire Citrix infrastructure now. We had a fairly heavy-duty laptop loan system using Citrix and iGel with NetScaler for loads of other business-critical apps. And right at the start, just going back to what Nathan was saying earlier about be prepared to learn, be prepared to move fast. It was, I won't lie, it was a bit of a whirlwind, and it was really, really difficult from my end because on the WVD, AVD side of things, I was pretty much the only person involved from Glasgow at that early stage. So having the guys on board and kind of running through things was kind of difficult to take in to start with, because I was still stuck in this mindset of this is how it's done in Citrix. We do that, and that to crack the image open, to do the updates, to do application patches, whatever. And it's not really anywhere near the same in AVD terms. I think if you'd asked me probably 18 months ago, would you swap Citrix for AVD, I would have said a blank no, not a chance, because as Nathan said earlier, the Citrix products are really polished, they're well done, the whole infrastructure around it is based on a bit PowerShell, as is AVD for the most part. And I found the Citrix infrastructure really easy to deal with. And while we're kind of looking at AVD and Azure DevOps for this as a kind of new thing, it's not really that new. And in that sense, you still get the concept of your code repositories and everything else. So you work in the basic principles that you understand how to write code. We all dabble a wee bit to some degree, I'm sure. So you can pick up the rest as you go. And the good thing for me was that while we were working through the issues that we had and trying to determine what level of machine we needed, what apps were performing poorly against these machines, where we could rehouse that. I had Nathan and Reese in the background kind of effectively teaching me as we go. And I'm not setting that as an expectation for Servant to be a training partner or anything like that, but the kind of the talk through that we had just made me feel a whole lot better about how we get from point A to point B, and just being able to kind of bounce ideas off the guys who were really, really responsive as well was a bit of a change for me, because I'd spent probably the previous kind of 6 months on my own trying to dig through documentation, doing a lot of stuff through the portal. We trying to get to this place where we can deliver a desktop relatively quickly so that we can get students back on campus. And to be quite honest, in some respects, we were flailing a wee bit. But now that we've got a good year under our belt now with AVD, and obviously a lot of help from Servant with the DevOps side of things as well, I don't think I would be in a big hurry to go back to Citrix anytime soon, even if the licensing issues were sorted, because I can see, at least I think I can see where this is going. The direction of travel for it is kind of forward, fast, let's go. We're kind of entering into space now where, for us, at least with the DevOps setup we have and the kind of understanding of what machines we need to put into place for the certain application deployments and stuff like that, we just go and do it now. We don't even think about it. It's no something that we find challenging anymore. And that for me has been a kind of real weight off of me. And it gives the other guys in the uni a bit of time to catch up as well, because we've got some really talented staff, but the problem has been historically that we've been going through a bit of a transition period as an institution for the last kind of 3 or 4 years. We've changed directorships a couple of times, and we've been looking at moving to new data centers, and that whole kind of kit reaching a certain age where do you replace it? Do you rehouse it in a data center somewhere? Now we're looking at putting that into Azure as this solution. That's the sort of direction of travel we're headed in. So yeah, I think we're delighted with what we've had. And normally I would kind of take an opportunity to have a wee joke and a wee dig and stuff like that at Des or Nathan's expense, you know. But at this point, I don't think I can do that, because the help we've had and the kind of the confidence building I've had from that, and I'm 20 years in the IT game. I've managed and administered SCCM, Active Directory, Citrix, Hyper-V, VMware. I'm not a newbie to this sort of thing, but because of the pace that we had to move it, it was again just great having these guys to say, this is what you do. Yeah, you've done that. That looks good. It'll work. But if you do it that way with that in place, then you get this. And I think that deep level of understanding is kind of, it's dragged us forward into a position where we can move at a much quicker pace now. That we've got applications that don't behave well in the uni. We run through them in a matter of days now. It's no problem for us.
Cool. Cheers, John. Some of the achievements there I'll let Andy speak about from a project delivery point of view before I wrap up the last two slides, which is some bullet points on how we delivered it technically. You're on mute, buddy. Yes, that was going to come up at some point.
Just waiting for stuff wants to catch up.
Can you hear me now?
Andy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can hear me now. Okay, yeah, just had to turn on and off. Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Thanks, John. We often we get very excited about the tech and what we can achieve with it and the learning journey that we're going on, but we have to bring it back down to the reason why we're doing this. And as John's touched on, there's some significant challenges for the university to continue their teaching mission because of the pandemic. And because of some legacy sort of heritage systems they had as well. But through the advent of AVD, they've been able to maintain that 100% teaching record that they've got. The platform was also quite quick for us to deploy, and that's largely due that the university were well geared. They were what we call a good customer, because they understood their desktop estate. Which is great because, as Nathan's implied before, not all customers are alike, and they expect you to come in with a silver bullet to correct all of the problems. And if you're going to move that into AVD and you've still got problems, you've got problems on premise, you're going to have them in the cloud as well. But John and co had a well understood and well documented and slick process for keeping their images up to date. They understood the processes for the image capture and for the application deployment as well. So there wasn't a lot of chasing tails trying to find out who was responsible for what. Silos were broken down quickly, and we're able to accelerate that, which meant that we would deliver up to 2,000 users within the first couple of weeks. We're on configured and able to run. Adoption acceleration, there's a piece on there really, which is about, yes, it's the same technology. Really, it's Windows 10 and M365, the Office 365 stack that people are used to using on a physical environment. But there's still that jar for customers, for end users, when they're asked to try something new. And there was a good adoption program within the university. And for some of those people, and particularly people who would be key evangelists throughout the organization, there were one-to-one sessions held to keep them up to speed. So they could see that this wasn't a huge departure from what they were used to using in the past. Costs, John mentioned at the beginning of the conversation there about keeping costs down and how AVD has been able to minimize those when you look at the total cost of ownership as taking to effect, staffing for keeping things going, the hardware maintenance and upkeep, the licensing for the heritage stuff that they had. Monitoring as well, obviously with it all being in the single platform, it's easy to get the monitors and the insights back so you can see how things are performing. Makes it easy for you to maintain, head off issues that perhaps the users haven't noticed yet, but also it helps chase down those snags when things do get reported. And as a result of all of that, confidence in the platform is continuing to grow. The IT staff, you can hear John talking about his journey and learning this, but also the end users as well. They're becoming more and more enamored with this, and seeing across the colleges, seeing opportunities for how they could use AVD in other teaching environments, and we'll talk about that on the last slide. But also, as John's touched on, the opportunities for the rest of public cloud, and in this case, Azure, to help them on their journey out of the data center. And now back to you, Nathan.
Sweet. So the last slide here is a bit of technical stuff without going into too much depth, but ultimately how we delivered it. So I've been around AVD long enough now to say, right, if you want to be quick with this, you need to adopt infrastructure as code from day one. And by infrastructure as code, I mean deploy your host pools, deploy your Azure VMs, deploy any agents to your Azure VMs at the same time. You know, if you know about how you can natively scale host pools at the moment, it's a completely different setup if you follow the Microsoft guidance on, you know, deploying logic apps and stuff. Automate that when you create your host pool, and it's something else that you don't have to tick off. Problem with well, it wasn't a problem. The university themselves, they had no GitHub, they had no Azure DevOps. They'd never ventured down the repository route, and you know, any of those practices. So we spent a couple of hours with the guys and said, listen, if you get yourself an Azure DevOps organization, it's free for 5 users. If it's not for you, turn it off. Store everything in code, you know, rather than passing PowerShell command scripts and ARM templates to each other, you know, help each other out by fixing things together. They can go and grab a copy of that repo, and that, you know, what we got across was DevOps isn't just for you know, app developers. You guys as infrastructure guys can use that as well. So that's what we did. And you know, I've got some vast, you know, subscription level ARM templates that we tweaked and made available to the customer to ease the whole deployment. And basically, John can take that fork a parameters file off that ARM template and basically have a new host pool with VMs up and running in 20 minutes, just as long as the platform takes to deploy the number of VMs he's deploying. So as part of that initial foundation piece we did with the enterprise scale landing zone, I'll let Reese step in here, but because these guys use Azure NetApp files for their FSLogix profiles, purely based on the sheer amount of users that could potentially currently connect to these to this environment, Azure NetApp files was one of the solutions we implemented. They needed well more than 4 terabytes of storage, which you need to buy 4 terabytes as a minimum for Azure NetApp files. And they potentially needed the throughput that Azure files potentially couldn't maintain. And in my opinion, being an Azure guy, yeah, Azure NetApp files can look expensive from the outset, but the admin overhead you lose by, you know, adopting Azure NetApp files and creating a volume in 2 minutes and getting that wherever you need to and getting data dumped into it is outweighs the cost analysis opposed to Azure files, or if you're mental, a file cluster on VMs. So obviously there's limitations if you use Azure NetApp files within a subnet in Azure. So you're instantly, as soon as you got Azure NetApp in a virtual network in Azure, you're limited to 1,000 usable IPs. That's been an issue for, I don't know, since the onset of Azure NetApp files, and the guys at NetApp, Kirk and everybody is keeping me comforted. Apparently that's going to be fixed, but when, we don't know. So, you know, with the scale or the potential scale of this environment, we were going to I instantly thought we're going to hit the roof here with the amount of VMs you can deploy to this virtual network. So we've got to start spoking this up. And if you're an Azure architect and you use a hub spoke architecture methodology, or you're using the new enterprise scale landing zone methodology, you need to link up your virtual networks to a to a hub. You need to have route tables in place because these guys use an Azure firewall that polices all traffic into and out of Azure, as well as VNet to VNet traffic, east-west, everything. Azure firewall does that, and the main reason for that is the network guys at the uni wanted to use a particular security vendor. There's NVAs in Azure, but they got 3 weeks down the line trying to get them to work. Got no support from the third party, and I was like, guys, let me just put Azure Firewall in for you. Premium in terms of web filtering and stuff is in preview, so you can use that if you want to, enhance that service. But let's put Azure Firewall in now, and if you want to change it again in future, you can do. It's doing what we need it to do at the minute. The guys are, I think, looking at the premium features now. But if you want to spin up a new spoke, there's different areas that you need to configure. So, Reese, what did you do to fix that for the guys?
Yeah, there's some unique challenges with that. So what we did is we spun up blueprints in Azure for the guys at the uni. There's a few other challenges in there that was to do with disaster recovery as well. And blueprints just fit right into that so that they wouldn't have, a bunch of shared resources for AVD just sitting in UK West, for example. What we decided to do was create everything via a single blueprint. Then on failure, if you lost a region, we just used that blueprint and applied it to a different region. And that would just give them the exact same environment. And it was totally version controlled, which really helped John and the guys at the uni get their hands and heads over the infrastructure as code side. Of course, we did do what you said, the expansion piece, where that if they had to go over 1,000 VMs, they would just have a separate blueprint which would create resources for those next 1,000 VMs with the networking, with the AVD, and then just link those up together. So they have three blueprints for each scenario that they have, whether that's the base deployment, the DR deployment, and the extra spoke. And I believe we've deployed that quite a few times now, and it's working quite well.
Yeah, hats off to you there, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Azure Blueprints. Thought they were too clunky, but Reece brought his experience to the table there, and ultimately came up with a good technical solution to ease the guys' pain and at the uni. So yeah, John can take them as a team and spin up his spokes, etc. when he needs to. Excellent bit of work. Gold image template. So again, you need to use if you're using multi-session Windows 10, you need to take an image from the marketplace, and then you need to configure that image. So the way the guys at the uni worked was, I said you can either write some custom PowerShell to install all the applications you want, pull it from storage accounts, pull the source media from everywhere. And I'd encourage you to look at that from day one. Or you can do what the guys at the uni did, and was just give me the VM. I'll make sure I can access it from on-prem. We'll get a memcm agent on it. We'll get the apps deployed as we know to it. We'll tell the AVD administrator, i.e. John, all your apps are there, mate. You can capture that image, stick that in a shared image gallery, and roll your Azure Virtual Desktop hosts out. And that's the way the guys manage it. So, John, how many images you got at the minute? 7 or 8, isn't it?
Yeah, 8, mate. But we're looking at dialing those down a wee bit, and because of the success we've had with the main Glasgow Anywhere image, we're going to try and roll up the additional applications into that, and just use that as the kind of main base. Just for everybody else's benefit, really, the reason we've split the images up into so many different parts is because we're quite a complicated landscape in terms of teaching and also software. and a lot of the software we use is either really quite old, but still functional for teaching, or it's very, very tied down in the licensing terms, and some of the applications we use for licensing cost £4,000 per license, so we can't really afford to have that across the board on a per student basis. That just wouldn't work at all for anyone.
Yep. I know you can use FS Logic's app masking,
Yep.
but I think the vendors that license the software wouldn't commit to saying you're covered if you're using map masking. You know, so to save a potential lawsuit, there's another option for having different images. So we've got an ARM template that runs a custom script extension. Now, if you're privy with Nerdio, for example, as a management tool, custom scripted actions, that's what it is. Custom script extension really runs a PowerShell script. You can do it natively. So that's what we've done for John there. So 21H1 Windows 10 comes out, he can quickly, again, fork a parameters file and get the base image, and then hand that over to his SCCM guys to do his application installs, and he's immediately testing the latest version of Windows 10 in a validation host pool. I mentioned it earlier. We use ARM templates. We use Terraform as well, but at the time, the Terraform commandlets or the Terraform AVD provider, it wasn't mature enough to do what we needed to do. So ARM templates are there. They're subscription level ARM templates. So they create the resource group, they'll create the resources in it. And we've got, phase 9 and 10 to improve that through DevOps pipelines. But pulling that all together, there's 4 key outputs for me at the end of this project. I know we've only got 3 minutes left. Main thing from the uni's perspective and us as a consultant coming in, the goal of this project was clearly communicated to everybody within a support role in the within the University of Glasgow. If people, IT is full of people with opinions, and that's absolutely fine. But we had a problem to solve. Let's get it solved, and you can bolt on any of this other stuff afterwards. And if you don't block progress is the ultimate, speech from me. Come back to it. And thankfully, everybody pulled in the same direction to get this over the line. So as I mentioned earlier, nobody told the networking team. Always happens. We got the network team involved, and they helped there. They drove the the landscape for the hybrid connectivity. They were on hand to make any firewall changes to the appliance that the VPN was connected to if we had a problem, and they were quickly removed. And that was testament to the way the guys operate internally at the uni. I mentioned it earlier. They took ownership. And the will to adapt, learn, and succeed was just amazing. It's probably the best I've seen for any customer I've seen. John and his guys, they got frustrated at times, and they got annoyed, and they got angry probably, and was like, "It's all right. Let's just get on a call and talk about it. Make yourself available, and we'll get to the bottom of it." And the guys have just leapt forward with it now, and as Andy mentioned earlier, they're already looking at to migrate other stuff to Azure, because the guys in the end user compute team know how to manage VMs, they know how to manage networking in Azure, they know how to do X, they know about logic apps because they're using that for scaling. So any other workload that comes to Azure, they're like, well, I already know about that. It's no different. It just runs a different app, The training and end user onboarding was clearly communicated as well. There was no, they'll just get used to it type attitude. Andy mentioned it. There was one-to-one sessions with, tutors and things. So the person delivering the learning in this case or the lessons was totally aware of the technology and understood how to fix 90% of the issues before having to phone IT for help. And yeah, John and the team would say, I've got this problem, can we do it another way? We'll go, well, me being me, I'd do it this way. Okay, Nathan, show me how you do that. Well, I'll do it like this. And it made them, rather than doing their own research into things and going away and Googling and finding a solution that, potentially they don't know what would happen at the end of it. We were able to allow them to make informed decisions. In the grand scheme of things, back to another point, they didn't overcomplicate it. It's if you look at it under the hood, it's a fairly uncomplex environment, really. They might, the apps on it they work. They didn't try and make it do something that you fundamentally couldn't. It scales the way it needs to scale without falling over, because everybody knows that the APIs in Azure hit limits. So if you can try and plan for those changes ahead of the time, you limit the user impact. And I'll let Andy finish up and John on what's next ultimately, because I know we've run over.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I won't go through all of these here, so people can obviously read. There's just a couple that I'd like to draw out in particular. I think the first one is probably what's last on the list there, the stuff on AVD. And John's already said, they're winding down their Citrix estate. We're now looking to move all the staff over to AVD as well as the learners. And then the other one to draw attention to is AVD in China. So the university has a very significant footprint and growing footprint in China, and there are significant challenges to maintaining the desktop estate for them over there. So AVD offers some solutions, but it also brings some challenges if anyone's ever had to do anything cloud-based within China. The Chinese state do have fairly stringent stipulations that they make. So we are working with the university and with Microsoft, with their local knowledge there, on what the best way is to deliver teaching services in there without falling foul of the local legalities. And that's the end of our conversation this evening. So before I let you go, I just wonder if there were any questions that we could answer for you, or if any have come up in the chat while I've been presenting, because I've not been able to see the chat window.
I don't think there's any questions in the chat, but that was awesome. Thank you all. That was great. I mean, I'm sure if there are any questions that that you want to fire over to the guys at Servent or John at the University of Glasgow, then I'm sure we can get them fed back via Des if needs be. And Nathan.
Yep. Always happy to reach out and talk Azure Virtual Desktop. Anytime.
Me too. Actually, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to pass them on.
Will do. That was fantastic. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate that. And yeah, like I say, if you've got any questions, fire them through in the chat now, or get them to us afterwards, and we'll feed them back to the guys. That's great.
Thank you.
Super. Thanks, guys. Right. Okay, let's move on to our. We've got some lightning talk sessions coming up for you now. So I believe Sasha is in the room. I think we'll just jump straight in. I'll hand you over to Sasha, who's going to talk to us around securing our enterprise using Azure Sentinel. Sasha, are you there?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have a problem with the camera and the bandwidth. In fact, I'm in the middle of the road, so that's that's the limitation of mobile connection. But nevertheless, thank you for inviting me. And I've been following this session. It's very interesting. And without further ado, we have 20 minutes. So I would like to show you everything that's to show with Azure Sentinel in 20 minutes. and get up and running? Well, obviously, Azure Sentinel is a very complex product, and that's an overture to an introduction to Azure Sentinel to get a little bit more acquainted with and to know a little bit more. So I'll share my screen, and I hope everything's okay. All right. Well, a few things first. Just quick. My name is Sasha, and I'm Azure MVP as an MCD and EC Council instructor as well, and doing mostly the IT training and consulting in cloud architecture. And I've been here since the Red Dog as well, and doing a little bit of AWS and GCP too, but mostly focusing on Azure. Well, let's just take a quick look where Azure Sentinel stands in terms of security. We have Azure Security Center, which stands below identifying and protecting your environment. Then we have a little bit of overlap. So, well, security is a comprehensive and a very complicated. Well, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it's a comprehensive thing in every architecture, in every product, and in every environment, as well as in Azure. So there is a little bit of overlap, and as you can see, or as you already saw, there are a lot of things repeating themselves throughout the Azure and throughout Microsoft Cloud portfolio. That's because Azure is, well, security is not one big switch where we just go in a room and pull the lever down or turn the switch on, but the security, in fact, is achieved by tweaking and turning on as much as possibilities and functionalities, and that is the situation here as well. So Azure Sentinel is just one part of the security chain, and typically the SOC analyst is this would be the primary console for alerts and investigation. Azure Sentinel and Azure Security Center share the data, and where it stands, in fact, is the security incident and event management. So Azure Sentinel is a cloud service that collects data from all over the places, from Microsoft services, applications, users, infrastructure, and public clouds as well, and third-party security solution too. So what it does, it enriches the data with intelligence. With, for example, it can put a geolocation information to it, to the data or RP reputation. For example, it can put the current IP reputation data. It means, for example, IP range or address might be very well, unharmed or in a green list, let's say. But if a bot or attack happened a few days or recently within that IP range, it can be blacklisted or put on a red list. So it also gets the appropriate tag based on the IP behavior and history. So there's a lot more. There is analysis and detection of threats. We have here extensive support of machine learning and user and entity behavior analytics, or UEBA or UEBA, whatever it is called. Today we have a lot of acronyms, so UEBA or user entity and behavior analytics is here as well. And then we have investigation and hunt suspicious of activities capabilities with visualizations, and as well automation and orchestration response capabilities, where we can use playbooks, that is the logic apps too. So then we have the integration as well with that. MITRE ATT&CK is something that is being present here in Microsoft portfolio recently in Azure Security Center and in Azure Sentinel as well. It is, in fact, it is a globally accessible knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques. So what it means, and in a plain language, it means that every action actually gets its own part and its own folder where it's put for identification and for systematization. So we have different categories. For example, if you look from the left to the right, we have initial access activities, execution activities, and persistent activities throughout the environment. And so all the activities and things that happen or incidents, let's say in Azure Sentinel, are also categorized based the MITRE attack matrix for enterprise too. And quickly, we have taxi as well, which is of course a service, but we are not about taxi here. In fact, a service, but it's the trusted automated exchange of intelligence information, and in fact is the application protocol for exchanging the cyber threat intelligence over HTTPS. That's the Azure Sentinel is capable of pulling the data from these servers as well. But let's take a look at the Azure Sentinel in fact console. So first of all, you have to have the log analytics workspace. I have one that is named accordingly Azure Sentinel workspace. The name has to be unique, so I've put my initials here as well. So once you do that, first of all, you have to onboard the log analytics into Azure Sentinel, and you do that by creating a new Azure Sentinel workspace. This one is already onboarded, and here you have the general overview of what happened in the last 24 hours or in the last 30 days, for example. And then you have the quick dashboards here that show potential malicious events throughout the world, geolocated as well, and as well as the recent incidents that happen. But the real interesting things happens here when you configure Azure Sentinel to work as you want. First of all, you need to go to settings and in fact look at the Azure Sentinel pricing, which is in fact the Azure Sentinel pricing is based on the data that is analyzed. So you pay once for the log analytics workspace that actually holds the data, and then you pay for another. You pay actually for Azure Sentinel processing of that data that log analytics workspace holds. And very important is to go to settings and to enable user and entity behavior analytics as well. And that's where you configure UEBA and then click on everything, select all the possibilities here for audit logs, Azure Activity, security events, and sign-in logs. And then when you turn it on, that's it. Here you can see also that for security purposes, workspaces automatically locked for delete, and that's to protect us from ourselves as well. And then a few things here that needs to be very clear, and this is in fact very it is basically the choices that you have to make based on for your virtual machines for storage account logs and Azure Activity logs. So it's the choice where you put the analytics data to be stored. You choose the log analytics workspace. In this case, this one is the same. For example, the other one or this one that actually Azure Sentinel will analyze. And then we have the data connectors, which is the next step. Data connectors are the connectors is the connection between Azure Sentinel and sources of the data that are being generated and sent to log analytics workspace to Sentinel for detection for analysis. And here they very the list keeps growing. For example, Amazon Web Services is here, and other things as well. I've connected Azure Active Directory, so Azure Sentinel can actually analyze the activity here in Azure Active Directory. So what in fact is this: as we've moved to the cloud recently in the recent years, then the overwhelming amount of data is actually putting a strain and creating a burden for security analysts to analyze all this data in a effective manner. That's where we have why we have Azure Security Center and Azure Sentinel to do the to offload the hard work to the artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we have analytics. Once we connected our sources like Azure Activity, Azure Defender, Office 365 is actually data is streamed in Azure Sentinel for free, and then analyzed. Then we have analytics, for example. Then these analytics rules actually deal how the incidents are created. So once we look at all the data that was ingested, then we can see the rule templates, and based on the rule templates, for example, create incidents. For example, this one says create incidents based on Azure Active Directory activity. We can activate the rule. Well, actually, create one. I won't create one because this one is already in use. But let's see the one that I've recently activated and created. It is, for example, this one that is where it is. It is this is the one, detect VM delete actions. So you create this one, for example, by using create and schedule query rule. I won't schedule it because it's already scheduled, but let's see what's inside. And once you name the analytic rule details, for example, I've named it detect VM delete actions. You set the status, enabled or disabled. You set the severity, and you choose the MITRE tactics, the category under which it will fall, and then set rule logic. Azure Sentinel uses custom query language, or KQL. For example, this one actually inspects the Azure activity for specific actions, for example, like delete virtual machines, and also it pulls out the caller IP address and actually the account name, and there it is. Query scheduling runs every 5 hours, and it looks up the data from the last 5 hours. There's the threshold. So if there's just one, so if it's the greater than 0, then it will create an incident. Incident settings are created here. We can also have this enabled and disabled, or group similar incidents. That's also very important. If we have a large number of similar incidents, then these can be grouped as well. Then what's even more important, we can attach the automated response to that. We can automate the alerts. So this automatically pulls the log analytics, the actually logic apps from the subscription. Let's say isolate VM to NSG or whatever it is. And then you pick the appropriate log logic app, and then it will be automated. So each time the incident is created, this one be automated. I will click X because it's already there, and I will enable it very quickly. Well, once you do that, then these here run on a scheduled timing, and creates an incident that can be further inspected. And there's a lot more in here, but for the last thing, I want to mention entity behavior or user and entity behavior analytics. So, for example, this is very useful. It actually entity can be any router, virtual machine, identity, user, and so on. So, for example, HV host. It's the VM that actually had 7 incidents in the last 30 days, and we can see all the information. about it: identity, logged in, IP addresses, and so on. And we can take this further and investigate. We are presented with, we have here the visual tool that actually connects the dots and connects the actions that are hard to spot with the naked eye. But here we have the machine learning and artificial intelligence that is helping us. So we can see the timeline, we can see the connected activities. So this is one, in fact, very simple. There is no other action, other activity other than suspicious authentication activity. But if there is one, you will be able to see that and actually act accordingly and investigate further. So we are, in fact, have a tool to find a needle in a haystack. If you have any questions, that's the essence of the Azure Sentinel. And typically we the Azure Sentinel course, and there's a lot more to teach and to learn. It will take at least a week and more to go in detail. But please just enable Azure Sentinel, play a little bit, stream the data, and connect a few sources, and look for yourself how it works. You might be surprised, and you might actually find something, or even better, let's hope you don't find anything in here. So it means you are perfectly secure. I think I'm on time, so one minute over.
That was great. Thank you, Sasha. Really appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.
Great
Thank
overview
you.
there for anybody looking to delve into the world of Sentinel. No, really appreciate that. Thanks for giving up your time tonight to take us through that, Sasha. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot.
And I guess if anybody's got any questions, I can't see any in the chat, but fire them through and we can reach out to Sasha and hopefully get some answers. But yeah, thanks, Sasha. Okay, so moving swiftly on, I can see Riccardo on the screen there. I'm going to hand straight over to you, Riccardo. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Okay, if you want, I can start because I have more or less 74 slides. It is impossible to put all the concepts around Redis in only 20 minutes. So I will select some basic concepts in order to have a focus about Redis on Azure. Can I start?
Yep, over to you. Absolutely, okay. Riccardo, thanks a lot.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. See it?
Yeah, got you.
Okay. So the agenda is a very huge agenda because there are many news about Cache Redis on Azure. Because of what? Because the new version of Redis that is deployed on Azure is the version 6, and the version 6 is full of news regarding performance, regarding modules, regarding the way you can use Redis. Today we will talk some concept about fundamentals, Azure service in terms of cache, anatomy of Redis that you can use on Azure, and some advanced concept about pipelining some transactions and do scripts. And if we can, I would like to explain you better which are the new modules that are inside Redis. Starting from the fundamentals, I don't know your knowledge level about Redis. But think that Redis is an under-evaluated instrument in order to make complete solutions, because everybody of us knows Redis about its capability to be a sort of a key value cache, but only the 5% of the Redis usage from the version 4 was about the message broker capabilities. And today, nobody of us has much trust regarding the usage of Redis in terms of autonomous database. And this is a huge error, in my opinion, because in the business company where I work every day, we use Redis as the principal and the main and the primary database, and is a fire. Respect on SQL or other local databases. But from the start, Redis has got is a data structure server, and so you can manage strings, hashes, list set, sorted set, and other things. For example, from version 5, you can manage strings, such as Kafka, for example, and you can manage hyperlog logs in order to maintain flat your memory, even if you have to search in a deep history of data. And the key features it depends on your point of view. From my point of view, so developer point of view, probably transactions. Okay, you can make transaction on Redis. You can pipeline data on Redis, so make more transformations before getting the result of the data. But is underestimated the usage of pub/sub functionalities, as well as Lua scripting. In my opinion, nobody of you have ever written a Lua script, and probably it is not clear the meaning of Lua script. The meaning of scripting in Redis is to keep your workload assigned to Redis, so remotely with a round trip in terms of network, and say, please do this calculation for me and get and come back with the result. And so you have to think to Redis as a sort of demand server in order to manipulate data or aggregate data or concatenate data prior to having the final result, in order not to using your random access memory, but using its own random access memory. Okay. From the architecture point of view, it is very simple service because you have only one config file. And so it is very simple to manage and to save your favorite configuration and to learn how to configure it. There are many concepts about replication or data backup and so on. But imagine that Redis, if you want to use Redis, you must have a lot of random access memory, nothing else. No high throughput CPUs, no high throughput hard disks. So not frequencies, not throughput, but only amount of gigabytes of RAM. And after that, after this concept, it is very, very fast to grow up with development on Redis. And it is very, very faster because if you want an example, recently I made a sort of benchmark with using a B2S, so pure virtual machine on Azure, and less than $10 per month. And so it is very faster because you can do, using correctly its own memory, you can do more than 80,000 operations per second. So it is very, very a strong system, and so you can achieve top performances. It is very useful in many cases, but it is important to understand that the caching is only one of the features, because there are other features that are regarding data ingestion, high throughput data ingestion, message queuing, so classical message queuing. And after that, you can manage, for example, algorithms. So in terms of Python algorithms, you can bring your own algorithms and put them into the Redis and say, please run on your resources and give me the result. And after that, we can say that it is very useful in two kinds of circumstances, so OLTP use cases and OLAP use cases. So in order to stream and make online and streaming based manipulation and analytics in the classical way. So periodically have the capability to understand the data and have a summary of the data. Redis modules. Redis is modular, so you can develop your own or your own modules. And during this, the last 4 years, Redis Labs, that is the business company that owns the professional version of Redis. It is the same, it is different only the way you can use the storage, okay? But we can talk after 2 slides. Redis is modular because you can plug into Redis many other modules. And so you can transform it into a search engine. You can transform it into a Mongo-like database. You can transform it into a time series database. Only installing, okay, some SO file that can enrich the data structures that you can use. And there are many modules. Some of them are supported, and you can find some of them into the enterprise version of Redis on Azure. For example, Redis Search, Redis Time Series, and Redis Bloom are already installed modules inside the enterprise version of Redis. I know that I didn't like it before because there were many strange things, such as the version was different when you use Windows or Linux. It was only a cache because I didn't understand the meaning and the use cases regarding the various data structures. And overall, there was fewer tools in order to manage it in terms of backup, in terms of management of the database, so data movement into the instance or outside the instance, and there was not training. Today is totally another world, so you can use Redis Insight as your principal tool in order to manage Redis, and you can use Redis University in order to learn it. Today, there is the 6th version. It is not the last version, but it is a good stable version on Azure Pass. But imagine that when you use Redis, you have to consider not only the platform as a service version of Redis, because you can use it into a virtual machine, but is not so elegant. You can use it in Kubernetes instance or in a container instance. I say it because during the development phase, probably at the starting point, you don't want to spend much money in order to have active or backups or a full managed service, okay, such as in production. And so you can achieve the same features using a simple installation using Docker containers. And in order to understand what is the Azure Cache for Redis, it is a managed service, so it is based on a VM, nothing else. You can have from 13 euros to 13,000 euros per month. Okay, so there is some difference between the C series and the F series, obviously. And in order to bring up the most important difference, the most important difference is the usage of the storage. Redis is a RAM-based database, and for some reason, the virtual machine can go down and you can lose your data, even if you have a completely up and running instance. It happens only one time in my life, but it happens. So if you want to have a cluster key installation, total managed service, but not only these functionalities, but to have the backup function and the store definition, okay, of the data folder. You have to go to the premium, at least the premium version, okay? So the main levels, the different levels are the basic. So you can pay only 13 euros, and you can have a Kafka-like stream processor. You can have hyperlog logs and all the standard features, not modules. If you want to have a pre-replication, you can double or more or less double the spending, so passing to the standard. But if you want data persistence, network security, and geo-replica and sharding, okay, you have to pay more or less 300 euros. Remember that it is not so an higher level of euros, because if you think that in an architecture you can substitute many objects, Cosmos DB, SQL database, yes, even if even a relational database, if you have not complicated data structures, you can substitute a time series database. You can substitute your search engine. You can substitute your cache, obviously. And if you sum all the costs regarding Azure, probably the sum of the costs is not higher, okay, and so the premium level is a good price. But if you want to have Redis modules and achieve to 999% stability of the system, you have to purchase Enterprise or Enterprise Flash. The main difference is that from in the Enterprise are more or less two differences. In the Enterprise or Enterprise Flash, you have the possibility to use the modules, okay, managed by Azure. And after that, you can have also the data persistence, but you can have geo-replica and high availability, okay? So think that the most similar service in terms of geo-replication, high availability, shards, key value stores is more or less Cosmos DB, okay? But the pricing is slightly different because you do not have throughput unit or something like that. You have only to pay the infrastructure. And in this way, it's more convenient because it's a sort of fixed price. Even the only factor to be underlined is that the memory limit is fixed, obviously, because there is a virtual machine, and you have to preemptively think about the maximum amount of memory that you have to use, okay? In the Enterprise, you can use also the storage rather than the memory. So it is a sort of extension of the memory, okay? You can use, as a sort of extension, you can use the hard disk. And so I think that you can have gigabytes and gigabytes of database. My 2 cents. Use AKS. If you know that in production, you will pay for the Enterprise. If you don't need any module, okay, you can stay in the premium level. If you don't have the possibility to use modules, or you don't want to use modules, stay on the basic within while you develop, and then go to the premium in order to have the data persistence. Only 4 minutes. The persistent modes are different. Imagine that you can perform a standard point-in-time snapshot, so the RDB, and you can establish a sort of time-triggered operation in terms of progressive backup, or you can have a sort of event stream of all the operations. So you have an append-only file in order to logs every write operation, okay? And so you can have a sort of replay of all the operation if you have to, if your database goes down and you want to go up with a new version. The billing is particular because there are two, in the offer quotation, okay, you have two lines. The first one is the hosting infrastructure, and the second one is the license, okay, that is divided month by month. And so when you pass to the enterprise version, you have to pay two things, two items: the infrastructure, as usual, and the Redis enterprise license that is divided month per month. In order to go on, the version 6 is more or less the same as the version 4 in terms of form, okay, during the deployment phase using the Azure portal. Remember that in version 6 you have ACLs, and so bring the concept of users to Redis, okay? Not only a flat connection string, but also the ACL in terms of database access, okay? Not row level security. Again, in the slides that I will give you, there is a sort of summary about the possibility to go up with the ACI instance of Redis, or a replicated cluster. Okay, so if you copy and paste this, you can have all your environments in order to develop and test Redis prior to choose the right level. 1 minute. I would like to show you, okay, some of the capabilities of the 3 modules that you can find into the enterprise level of Azure Cache. The first one is the time series database. So imagine that in the past, there were a sort of tricky method to use Redis as a time series using sorted sets, but the time series database has got some new feature, and the new feature is that you can create real-time rules in order to, for example, make aggregations. Okay, so while the data is coming into, okay, the time series, another key with another time series can grow up, okay, at the same time. And so, for example, you can perform downsamplings. And it is a very useful thing regarding IoT, for example, when you process all the process control variables of an asset. Another important thing, for example, when we use the news client to watch news, okay, it will keep us recommending new content. And it will request every time it is recommended to remove the content that has already been seen. The question is, how does the news client recommend the system to push and deduplicate? So deduplication is the key of Redis Bloom. So imagine that the problem is that when the amount of users regarding, for example, the news content, okay, is large, and the news that each user has seen is a lot. So you have 2 possibilities. One, the possibility is to cache another time all this kind of information, but the amount of random access memory grows up. Or you can use Redis Bloom, for example, in order to have data sketches. So a sort of minimum data structure that performs in terms of request time, but not grow up in terms of megabytes allocated. And the last one is the capability to Redis to have a sort of structured search engine. Okay, so you can query data, content, and make your full text search capabilities, and you can scale out your infrastructure. Okay, so you have to manage only one database, for example, enterprise level, with many nodes, in which you can activate more than one module. So you can use only one thing as a time series, as a key value store, as a search engine in different databases that are contained into the same one instance. In order to finish, Redis for everything. Am I crazy? Probably yes, but imagine that today, when you realize an architecture on Azure, probably you will pay more than one database, because you have probably one SQL database that is slow and you want to combine it with a cache in order to be more fast. Two databases paid. Or if you deal with process data, so time series, you will pay Azure Data Explorer. If you want to have geo-replicated JSON about configuration of something, you want to use also Cosmos DB. But each of them must be maintained, must be updated in terms of .NET libraries and so on. And probably some of those databases are not permitted to be installed in an on-premise situation. And so you have to grow up with two line of training arguments, okay, from on the on-premise and on the cloud arguments. And also you can you have to spend much more time in order to understand how to use AI on Azure, ML on Azure, and streaming object on Azure. But if you learn only one tool and manage well one tool, can you do the same thing? My response is yes. Because Redis is durable, is flexible in terms of data structure, is extensible, and is very scalable. I don't know, but yes, 9:15, probably my time is, the time's running out. So if you want to have some update or something regarding an in-depth lesson or some advice about Redis usage or use cases, I'm here at your disposal. If you have any question, I'm here to try to answer.
Superb. Thank you so much, Riccardo. That was absolutely fantastic. I've certainly learned a lot about Redis Cache. So no, huge thanks for that. I don't think there's any questions. I'm just checking the chat now. No, I can't see any questions. Okay. Thank you so much, Riccardo. Really appreciate that talk.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Catch you soon. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Okie dokie. Right, huge thanks to all our speakers, but it is quiz time. So
Matt's back on camera, so it must be quiz time.
Over to Matt.
Let me find the window. Everyone should be able to see that one now. There's your code for tonight. Now, I have to apologise. I've been on holiday for a week and I may have been drinking when I wrote this. So some of the questions are particularly tricky tonight. And I'm really pleased to listen to the content tonight and that I've actually got some of the answers to some of the questions correct, which I'm quite pleased by. So how many have we got in? Should be around about 20 people in there, I would think. Give it a couple of minutes, let it fill up. Who's not going to win? Is that you, Ross?
I'm going to play because I haven't seen any of these questions, Matt. So I'm going to have a go.
Yep.
As long as the second prize gets the second place gets the prize. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. What are we doing? Are we doing
Adventures Jar.
first and second? That's a good point, actually, Matt. Are we going to do first and second as we usually do?
Yeah, why not?
First and second. There we are. There we are.
Why not? Anyone would think we're making this up on the fly.
Problem is, whenever Ross joins a quiz, you know that you've got to give a prize for second place as well.
That's why we're looking forward to these in-person events, because he's going to pay for everything.
There we are. Dean's got a good idea. Mix it up a bit. Do first and third.
While we're
I'll
waiting, I
just
thought
confuse.
I'd show off the new puppy.
Oh,
A9 time. Yeah.
what have you got there? Is that? It looks like a corgi.
Yeah, I got myself a corgi.
No way.
We had to
Who are you,
drive
the Queen?
all the way, like, I think it was 300 miles to collect them.
No way.
Any more? We're up to 11. Is there any more out there?
Ross is saying second and third. Nobody wants to go for first. I take it we're sticking with first and second, don't we?
Yeah.
You say something next.
So, last call. Another one in. Any more for any more? Round dozen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. Skip through the nonsense. There we go. 3, 2, 1. Which of the following is not a feature of Azure Firewall Premium? TLS inspection, intrusion detection and prevention system, DNS resolution, or URL filtering? DNS resolution is right. There's a DNS proxy, but not resolution. That was quite a prediction. Which Azure service uses the following icon? These are quite tricky this time. Oh, I see I've split the room now. There's a lot of bemused faces on the cameras there now.
This is the problem when you work with infrastructure as code.
Yeah,
You never see the things.
Understanding an intent service, or Lewis. No prizes for guessing what I've been playing with this week. Ross is back at the top. Which file format is used for ARM templates? XML, JSON, YAML, or Bicep? Easy one. Everyone knew that one. Well, almost everyone knew that one. Question 4. What's the current maximum message size for Service Bus messages? 1 meg, 10 meg, 100K, 1 gig. It's only 1 meg at the moment, but there is a preview at the moment for large message sizes, which increases it to 100 meg. Ah, you see, shaking things up a bit now. Well done, Sebastian. This is the icon for Q&A Maker. Is that true or false? It's true. Sebastian doing well tonight. Multi-select question. Which of the following are features of Azure Cache for Redis Premium? Remember, you're selecting multiple answers on this one. Redis modules is only a feature of Enterprise. That's shaking things up? No. Halfway through. Which of the following is not a JavaScript framework? Colon is the right answer. We've got some change at the top. Still all to play for. Question 8, true or false? In Azure Sentinel, you pay per gigabyte of data ingested. That's true. Most of you getting that one. Sebastian still holding on to that lead at the top. Question 9. What is the SLA for query availability on log analytics? Azure Sentinel built on top of log analytics. What's the SLA? 99.9. Oh, split the room. Oh, Johnny takes the lead. Guess the icon. Service bus, static web apps, web pub sub, or Signal R service. Told you there were some good questions today. It's only one of you got that right. It's web pub sub. Oh, that's going to cause some upset. Who was it? Hang on, where's all the changes to questions? How much did the revenue from Azure grow in the last quarter for Microsoft? It was 51%. Blinding performance. Oh, there's a good fight for second and third, which may be the payout places at this rate.
What do you mean?
True or false? Azure Virtual Desktop will support Windows 11. It's true. Of course it will. Question 13. Can you join AVD VMs directly to Azure Active Directory? Yes, it's in preview. It was announced recently. So that's going to upset things. Ross again. Definitely second and third then today. Right. Couple of obscure ones now. Up to this point, which named colour has not been the correct answer to a question? Which named colour? It was red. The blue answer gets it right.
So was it red or blue?
It's the named colour, not the colour of the icon. And in a similar vein, for the final question for the decider, put the named colours in the order they appear in the Microsoft logo, left to right, top to bottom. Again, the named colours, not the colours of the answers. Oh, that slowed people down a bit. This is like one of those psychological tests. Red, green, blue, yellow. There we go.
I think that one broke me a wee bit.
That was partially the intent. So let's have a look at what the leaderboard looks like now. In third place, Aidan, well done. In second place, I'm not going to win. And at the top is once again our boy Ross. with the Dean and Turncoat and 4th and 5th runners-up place. So well done, everyone.
So prizes for number 1 and number 3 then. So Aidan, drop me your...
Go for 3 and 4, John.
Are you sure, Ross?
Yeah.
What was number 4?
The Dean.
The Dean, I think.
That's fine.
So the Dean, you need to say thank you to Ross. Cool. Aidan, Dean. Well, I think I know who the Dean is. That is you. There we are. It is Dean Ellaby. Okay. Aidan, drop me your email and we'll get that voucher sent out to you. Thanks, Ross. Thanks for your generosity yet again, matey. It's always the way, isn't it? You've got to stop winning these quizzes. You've got to make these questions harder, Matt.
Brilliant questions. See.
We're getting there. Okie dokie. Well, go on. Sorry, mate. Go on.
So I've got to up my game for next month now, if we're in person.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's just crack on with wrapping up the session for tonight then. So as always, thanks everybody for joining in. It's been a pleasure to see all your smiley faces yet again, and a huge thanks to all of our speakers tonight. I'm sure everybody will agree that the content has been phenomenal again tonight. So huge thanks to all the guys from Servant and the Uni of Glasgow. Obviously, thanks to Sasha and Riccardo for the lightning talks, and thanks to everybody for joining in. So, like we said at the beginning, if you can scan the QR code and leave us some feedback, as always, it's most welcomed. That would be cool. And we're going to go for it. So I think the announcement of tonight is our September meetup. Save the date, 29th of September. It's a Wednesday, round about 6:30 to 9. We provisionally booked a room, so we're hoping to make it an in-person event. My goodness, hear that roaring applause of thunder of applause. We are hoping to stream it live as well. So, of course, if you are not in the vicinity of Cardiff, then obviously you can still join us, and we will... Yeah, like Matt said earlier, probably bear with us. Hopefully we can make it work somehow. So save the date, 29th of September, in person at the Tram Shed Tech in Cardiff. What I'll probably do, there's no RSVPs up yet in the Meet Me, but I'll work it out, whether I put 2 up, 1 for the virtual, 1 for the meetup. I'll work it out anyway. Stay tuned for that one. So there we go. Thanks everybody for joining in. It's been fun. If you can scan that QR code and give us some feedback, that would be brilliant. Until next month, we see all your smiley faces then. Cheers all.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers, Ta.
Cheers guys. Take care.